Hi, my name is Michael G, and have a video for you today. And this topic has probably been covered in some of my older videos and touched upon again on the Truth of Everything videos, probably 20 videos back. But today, I wanted to talk about scientists that mocked God have a huge problem to reconcile, and that is the truth of everything. Now, why am I picking on the scientists? Because science has gotten to a point where they're even changing their words now. People like Lawrence Krauss, Bill Nye the Science Guy, that heavy-set guy, I forgot his name now. But what they're doing is they're trying to say that theories are facts. That's what they're trying to say. Now, a theory is not a fact. Theories, if you look it up in the dictionary, they will definitely tell you that they're not facts because theories can be modified. There's something called the theory of everything. And the acronym is TOE, TOE. And at one point I thought that the understandings that I've been writing about is like the theory of everything. And then I'm like, something, a theory is not strong enough. Theory can be wrong. So their theory of everything, as this guy Mikaku or whatever says, that there's going to be a 1-inch formula that will be able to define and combine relativity and quantum. And these are two parts of science that the laws in relativity don't work too well in quantum, and quantum fails when it's trying to talk about relativity. It gets super complicated. You don't really have to know a lot about the science right now. You can always look it up, and everybody says that they can't get these two together. In fact, when Einstein was dying, he was working every single day diligently because he wanted to give the theory of everything, because he wants to be able to measure everything. So relativity is something you can measure, and it's precise, and quantum is probability. That's really it in a nutshell. In other words, in relativity, you look up, you expect the moon to be someplace, it's there. Quantum, you're not going to know where the moon is, or in this case the electron, until you look at it. And then once you look at it, now you know where it is. So you can only get a probability of where the electron is, and that's how computers work, and like you hear me say, the feminine energy operates. So Einstein is a champion of relativity, and Niels Bohr, he's the quantum leap guy, is the champion of quantum. So what are the scientists going to do is that their theory of everything, they want to tell you that this is a water. That's not water. That's a few pencil strokes on a piece of paper. That's a formula, but that's not water. So when we understand water, it's different than how a scientist wants to understand water. And the scientists have been continually mocking God, saying, well, God should show himself. Where's God? Well, funny thing, if you happen to read the Bible, in the beginning, God said, let us make man in our image. Let us make them, male and female. So the image of God are two people. Okay, masculine and the feminine. I'm not going to draw the other parts, let's just put it this way. So let us make man in our image, male and female God. And then I was thinking one day that God is everywhere. And the Bible talks about God's handiwork being everywhere. So God would sign everything that he did, because it's his glory. He made it. When you have a artist, they sign the painting so that you know who it is. The artists that don't have a strong identity don't sign their name. Actually, they're also proving the truth of everything, because they're taking the feminine approach, saying, well, the art should speak for itself. They'll know me by whatever. But he doesn't sign his name, or she doesn't sign her name. God signs everything with "let us make man in our image." So if we're looking at male and female, the male and female also, I'll put it here, male, female, can be broken down in space and time. And what works between space and time, if your space is aligned properly and your time is aligned properly, light is the bridge between space and time. Light fulfills the particle and the wave. Time is the wave, space is the particle. This is a big problem now for the scientists, because now, if you follow this understanding, it defines pretty much everything going on in the world. And for this case, we're going to use Lawrence Krauss as an example of how the scientists are going to have a problem. Now, this guy continuously talks about God all the time. And he wrote a book, or a bunch of books. All these smart guys, smart women write all these books. And his book is about, universe from nothing, how the universe came together because of the Big Bang. Okay? And then there's a multiverse. All right? All these big words that they say, the Big Bang, multiverse. So Lawrence Krauss says that in the future, the distant future, we have, let's say, the Milky Way. So the Milky Way galaxy, and then we have galaxies far away. And what happens is the space between, let's say, this distant galaxy and the Milky Way is spreading further and further. In other words, this space is growing further and further as time goes by. There's going to come a point, and it's called a redshift. And you might already know this from, if you look at a sunset, the sun is going away from us and it starts to look red. When it comes to us, it looks a different color, and when it goes away from us, it looks like a different color. But as this distant galaxy, or let me go over here. So we have a distant galaxy. And we have here the Milky Way. As this space increases, and it will increase because of dark matter. Isn't that interesting? How convenient. It'll increase because of dark matter. This dark matter is continuously adding more. So there will come a time when the dark matter will expand faster. The dark matter will expand faster than the speed of light. When that does happen, you will no longer see these distant galaxies. Okay, this is Lawrence Krauss said this. It's very easy to find. I'll even include a video link to this where I actually had this on my website. And I did this years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago. And the interesting thing that he says, that if there are scientists in, let's say someplace else on the Milky Way, and they wanted to map out the world after this red shift and all the galaxies are far away, they will have the wrong perception of the world. So their perception would mean that they would be lonely because there'll be nothing else. There'll be no more distant galaxies. They're going to be ignorant because they don't know the truth. And they will be dominant. This is what happens when the Milky Way, from the distant galaxies, the distance of the dark matter goes so much, it's going faster than light, that the light will never get to us and our light will never get to them, because the dark matter is separating faster than faster. Now, that happens to be on a macro scale. This is a macro scale. This is big stuff now. This is galaxies, right? So let's see it in a truth of everything scale, or the toe. Here we go. The body. You will not know your past. So you can consider this guy leaving the distant galaxies, or the past, because the past is, in the torso. And how do they do this? By adding destructive behavior that creates a downward force to keep pain, emotions, feelings away from the head. This dark matter, as they do the bad behavior, as they live in their lies, they will become exactly like Lawrence Krauss said. Lonely, because they're by themselves. Ignorant, because remember, they're always being fed yes instead of getting no, so they're always being lied to at the same time, but they will be dominant. How can something that has to do with space, planets and galaxies relate to human beings? That's the truth of everything. It ties everything together. And let me go to... Now, who's going to tell this to Lawrence Krauss? Does anybody have Lawrence Krauss as a friend? Maybe he'd like to know about this truth of everything. How lonely, ignorant, and dominant is the same exact place that the narcissist or psychopath has. All right, let's put that one aside. Let's go get another one. What if I'm wrong about this, right? You can say I'm wrong. Well, how about we go into politics? Let's go into politics. That's a whole nother science, right? So, you heard me say before, this would be the masculine, the head, and our bodies would be the feminine. So you can put these as two different people, it's fine. You can have one body, masculine, the male, one feminine. The male person has more charge in the head, the female has more charge in the torso. And that's just the way it is. There's no way around it. If this person tries to get into the feminine, they will lose their masculinity. They will actually maybe even become impotent. And just as the female, if she has her head overcharged, she can actually be not fertile, won't be able to have children. So if you leave the estate that you were born with, you're going to have a problem. And that confusion is different in how the Democrats and Republicans look at it. The Republicans, let's say the Republicans, being more the masculine, being more the relativity, more quantum, Okay? There are more of these. There's more Democrats, Republicans. Okay? This is more identity oriented. The identity of the head. This is collective oriented. Orientated. All right. Collective orientated. You can even see the difference in how, let's say Donald Trump doesn't wear a mask. He's a masculine. He's not worried about the germs. And you could look at Biden as hiding in his bunker. You know, Donald Trump is masculine. He has mobility in space, whereas Biden was kind of staying in his basement for a long time. Staying in his basement. In fact, Biden has a bigger problem with speech and memory than Donald Trump. Isn't that interesting? Because remember, if he's coming from this position, he's not realizing the head is not fully formed. Now, Trump, of course, being this, is lacking that. So either one of them, I don't care which position you take, this is a division right now. And Christ came to the earth to divide. The Bible also talks about dividing the word of truth. So this division is played out in our politics. God is bigger issue with God of Christianity is very big with the Republicans. But the Democrats kind of have all religions. They call this white supremacy. They call this Black Lives Matter. Now, if you look at this, Black Lives Matter, if you don't have light, you're going to not be able to see. It's going to look black to you. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad towards black people or different towards white people. It's not that. It has to do with they chose Black Lives Matter on one end, and on the other side they're saying white supremacy. Or Antifa, which is definitely a left organization. And what's happening with Antifa is that they are taking down the heads. They are destroying statues. They're destroying the history of, let's say, the United States, and they're probably going all around the world doing this. But when you're destroying the history of the United States, you're not destroying the truth, because this history of the United States was not written with truth. So as Antifa rises, or the feminine is rising, it's rising because the masculine didn't do the proper job. The Bible talks about this. The Bible talks about the queen of the south and Nineveh are going to rise up in the judgment. But that's in the truth, not what's happening with the reality of, let's say, the Republicans and the Democrats. But as the spirit rises, the feminine is going to rise, because the spirit's in the feminine, and it's going to go after the head. And that's happening right now with what's happening with these riots. This group of people is saying the riots should be put down by force. This group of people says that the police are not, they should be dissolved. Now, both of them have a point, because the police do have things like asset forfeiture, which takes people's property away, which you can look it up, and the police has had numerous encounters with people that were systematic. One of them is that the knee on the neck, that's actually something that is taught in Israel, and police departments from around the country are going there to learn these tactics, because those tactics were used on the Palestinian people. And that's, the Palestinian people are under military rule. It's an occupation. So we can't bring that here. So that means the masculine wasn't doing the proper job in dealing with people, and now you have this group of people saying, we're going to burn it all down. Not all of them, but like, let's say the Antifa part of it. And the Antifa part of it is not exactly the Black Lives Matter. It's different. This is the far left. They're saying that they're against fascism. However, whenever you have "Together we are strong" and no head, and that's exactly even the logo of Anonymous. Anyway, however you spell it, Anonymous, is their logo is not having a head. It's a man's suit without a head. I mean, we're looking here at the Republican Party, and it is exactly, and the Democratic Party, and it is exactly what we're talking about with the truth of everything. The masculine, the feminine. And there's no light. There is no light. Okay, so this is what you have when you have a distorted group of people. You have the Republicans there, and you have, or the Republican of this type. You don't have the Democrats as the blind enablers. You have them more of controlling enablers. So one is a narcissist, and the other one is a covert narcissist. Not exactly this picture. The covert narcissist has a plan. So which one of these are better? Neither one of them. They're both wrong, because they are in the fringes. They're going to the extremes, because now we're at the time where the division is made clear. We are going to be dividing, or not we are, because the truth of everything is coming out now, and it's really rising. That means God's in the judgment process, and we're in the morning hours of the day, where the light or the sun of righteousness is going to rise up. Being in your truth, inner truth and outer truth, you'll be not part of this problem, or you will start bringing light to the problem, and you will be part of the healing factor or the judgment factor. The bottom line is, neither one of these parties are doing what they're supposed to do. Each one of them have their own set of lies that they're telling their base. If you're part of this group, you're saying this person lies. If you're part of that group, you're saying that person lies. What you see here with the masculine and the feminine in the Republican Party and the Democrats is the same thing in division you're seeing with men and women today. There's a growing group of people called MGTOW, and then you have feminism. And they're separating. They're not coming together. And they're not coming together because there's no light. There's no light. Another thing too you have here is that you have in the Republicans, they're big on heterosexual, male and female. And if you look at the Democrats, they have the LGBTQT, but you see how many they have? All the letters keep on going, besides the male and the female. They have over, I don't know how many genders. But that's because the quantum is a collective. So of course they're going to have this. If you have no eyes to see which reproductive organs that you have, you're not going to know. So this base of people don't have a head. They're dealing on the premise of collective. They don't want you to have your own identity. They like Big Brother controlling. And we know this even from the Democratic states. The rulers of the Democratic states have no money because they were implementing the lockdowns, and by having the lockdowns, you are, in a sense, not allowing people to have money to eat. So this part still needs to be fed. Who is going to feed the torso if you don't go out to work? Who's going to feed the torso? The Democrats think that it's just going to come magically. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, The Republicans, on the other hand, they might not fully embrace whatever's happening with this coronavirus or COVID-19. That's their end of it. So it's not about these people are more right or these people are more right. The idea is that the truth of everything is telling you that they're not in truth. And if you're lying to your population, you cannot stand. You have a divided house. The Bible says it, a divided house cannot stand. And that's what we have here today. Now, how come we're able to go into cosmology and Lawrence Krauss talking about, lonely, ignorant, but dominant in galaxies, and still able to tie that together with the Democrats and the Republicans and them duking it out over the presidency? And isn't it funny? Which year are we looking at? 2020. 2020. That's for your vision, so you could see better. Isn't that something? In the year 2020, we're actually having the ability to see that they don't have any light. It's incredible. And this is what the truth of everything does. It's going to show you the signature of what's going on. It's showing you the judgment, because both the masculine and the feminine, both relative, the Republicans and the Democrats, are fulfilling this judgment. The only difference is that the Democrats don't represent the blind enabler. They represent the covert narcissist. So you could say the Republicans are the narcissists and the Democrats are the covert narcissists. At the end of the day, it's just one end of the problem. Both are in distortion. They aren't innocent. They're both fully engrossed in lies. You can't have the identity that is corrupt, and you can't have the collective that's corrupt. And that's the bottom line. So they are also going to be lonely, ignorant, but dominant. So what are the scientists going to do when they start seeing that God had signed, let us make man in our image in everything in the world? Now, this could just as easily be psychology. Psychology of, let's say, the Western compared to the Eastern. The Eastern understanding is the nail that's sticking up gets hammered down. The Western is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Those two different understandings define pretty much the Western and the Eastern philosophy or psychology and how they operate. If you were to go to the Oriental countries, to be, let's say, Japan, silent, being quiet is a big deal. You come to the United States and everybody's noisy and I don't know, loud. They're not quiet like the Orient religions or the Orient psychology philosophy. Even if you look at the Buddha doesn't have arms or legs. If you ever see it, it just looks like a big ball. The Buddha or Confucius, or the Buddha, he looks like this. And if you look at the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, they pretty much are all I do religions, whereas the Buddhists and those other people are more of to be. But the problem is they can't use their will to get into the state of being. They're already contradicting themselves. That's why in the truth of everything, the old man must die so the spirit can rise. I hope this video makes sense. Maybe I'll do other parts of the truth of everything individually, one by one, to give you a little better examples. But the bottom line is very easy to see how the Republicans are the masculine and the Democrats fill out as the feminine. In fact, look who's leading the Democrats. It's Pelosi. And what did she do? She got her hair cut recently. And she got her hair cut and she didn't even know the law. Anyway, they're both